Hello and welcome to this week's Facebook Live. Today is the last Facebook Live of July, which means it's the last Facebook Live of Money Month. Last Facebook Live of Money Month. Doesn't mean it's the last discussion we're ever going to have about money and finances, of course, but it is the last one for a while. We'll cover some other subjects in August and September, see where we go from there. But this is the last one. I hope this is helpful for you. I know I've been getting a lot of really positive feedback from the first four we did of the first 4 weeks of this month. So this is our final one, fifth and final one. And this is overcoming your parents' beliefs and your past. I added that little bit at the end. That wasn't in the original post about it. But overcoming your parents' beliefs and your past on your road to financial freedom. Now, here's the thing that it's important to sort of realize about this. I'm gonna read you some things. So I'm gonna read them right off my screen, and I just want you to listen to them and think about the meaning of them. Now, these first things are not even about your parents' beliefs, but they are a lot about people's pasts and the influence and effect that has on their financial situation, on not their financial situation, actually, their financial decisions, their financial opinions, what they end up doing, what they think is right, not right, what they think is wise and unwise, what they end up doing. Okay, so it'll shine light on the parent piece, but I want to first just talk you through these. This is actually pretty amazing when you think about it. So here's what, this is just statistically true. If you grew up when inflation was high, not if inflation was high at any point in your life, if you grew up under high inflation, then when you became an adult, you invested less in bonds than those who grew up when inflation was low. Now, here, I want you to really pay attention to this. By the way, I say you. Obviously, you might be an exception to the rule. Right? So I'm not saying 100% of human beings did this, but the vast majority work like this. They've studied this, right? So let's really explore just that. I'm going to read you a few more, but let's really explore that first one, what that actually means. What that means is they're not saying people invested more in bonds during times when it made more sense to do that, and they invested less in bonds when they were living in times that made less sense to do that. What they're saying is that when people grow up in a time of high inflation, they act like inflation is high and make investment decisions as if inflation is high for the rest of their lives, irrespective of the actual financial circumstances in which they live. Right? Are you really getting that? So when they were a child and a teenager, they take that experience, and when they're 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, they make decisions as if they're living the life they were living when they were 15, even though the financial circumstances in which they're living are very different. Right? Isn't that interesting? Here's another one. If you grew up when the stock market was strong, you invested more in the stock market, right? That's not surprising given the previous stat, right? But again, I'm not talking about when you're living in a time of a strong stock market, you invested more in the stock market. If the stock market was strong when you were growing up, okay? If you were born in 1970, then the S&P 500 increased almost tenfold, adjusted for inflation, during your teens and 20s. Let me just read that again. If you were born in 1970, then the S&P 500 increased almost tenfold, adjusted for inflation, during your teens and 20s. If you were born in 1950, the market was essentially flat during most of your teens and 20s. Right? So, by the way, if you didn't know that, I didn't know that. I was surprised when I read that, right? I always think of the booming 50s, right? And the 50s was, in certain ways, for certain people, an economic boom time. But turns out not because the stock market was booming, right? That's not where the boom came from. So it was essentially flat. It wasn't that it was crashing. It's just essentially flat. It inched up a little bit. So that's if you were born in 1950. If you were born in 1960, inflation tripled prices, plus eventually you had soaring gas prices during your teens and 20s, if you were born in 1960. If you were born in 1990, I'm going all the way forward now. If you were born in 1990, for most of your life, until what happened right after COVID, up until that time, you didn't even think about inflation. It wasn't a thing. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't something you thought was going to happen. And gas was cheap too. So inflation was low on everything, very low. And gas was cheap in your teens and 20s. And in most cases, what that means is you behaved that way and made your financial decisions based on that, regardless of the financial situations that you lived in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. Right? Are you really getting that? So take that in. That's just a piece. Obviously, that's not your parents' beliefs, and which we're going to talk about as well. But that's part of your past. That's all of our past, right? We all grew up in a particular economic time for our own life, for our own past. Listen, it's not a problem that we all grew up in different economic times. Sure, that's the world we live in. The problem is that we act like we are living in that time for the rest of our lives, because we get trapped inside boxes of our own making, but we don't even realize we're making the box. Right? So that's just the financial experience that we grew up in terms of the national finance. Now, there's also another piece, which is the financial situation you grew up with in your own family. Right? Did you grow up in a poor family, so-called poor, a family that you thought you were poor? Did you grow up in a wealthy family? Did you grow up in a family that was partly in one economic, let's say, was doing well financially and then lost everything? Did you grow up in a family that was hard scrabble at first and then suddenly struck it rich? Did you grow up in a family where the wealth didn't change, right? Did you grow up, if you're quite mature in your age, did you grow up during something like the Great Depression, and so your family and all the families around you were really struggling economically? Right? But it's interesting, again, even if you grew up in the Great Depression, John F. Kennedy once talked about how, even though he grew up in the Great Depression, his family didn't feel the Great Depression at all. In fact, in many ways, it was even better for them during the Great Depression. They had a ton of money. Nobody else did, or a lot of other people didn't. So again, it's not always just the national circumstance, right? It's your family's circumstance, what you grew up in. Again, we make decisions based on this, right? I'm sure you've all heard this when you seen movies of the people that grew up in the Great Depression, who experienced the Great Depression, who were not rich during the Great Depression, which is most people. They were very careful and miserly and concerned and just saved a lot, spent a little, because the rest of their life was geared by that frame of mind of what they experienced during the Great Depression. And I don't blame anybody for that. I'm not saying, look, this is something we all do. So it's not unique to the people that grew up in the Great Depression. What was unique was what they went through, but it wasn't unique that they took that with them the rest of their life. That's super common. Right? Now, again, it's not that it's inherently bad. It's not like, hey, you need to abandon the beliefs of your parents. Whatever your parents believed about money, you need to abandon it. It's not that. Maybe your parents had beliefs about money and taught you things about money that have served you and are continuing to serve you into your adulthood. Great. The problem comes in is when we get trapped by the beliefs that we were taught when we were young, financially speaking. I'm talking about financially, and beliefs about money. We get trapped in the beliefs of our parents, the economic circumstance of our family growing up, and the economic circumstances of our country at that time, even if you're not American, whatever country you grew up in, right? So this becomes an issue, because then we can't actually have true financial freedom. I'm not saying it's impossible to be financially successful if you cling to the ideas that you grew up with. I'm not saying you can't be financially successful, but even if you're financially successful, even then, it's debatable whether you have true financial freedom, because you're not making the decisions you're making from your own, at the core of it, from your own values, from your own experiences later in life, from things you might learn from reading or taking courses, or from your own experiences. And again, I'm not saying nobody learns from their own experiences later, but I'm saying we do have a tendency to cling on to these things that we grew up with and had in the early part of our adulthood. And that's also true for our parents' beliefs, right? Your parents, and again, they're not always taught as like, hey, son or daughter, let me tell you about how money works. Maybe some of your parents did that. But a lot of times we're taught really, really powerful beliefs from our parents, not deliberately. Our parents aren't trying to teach, they're not sitting us down and giving us a lesson. We might not even be aware that we're being taught beliefs, but we're listening and hearing and taking in things that our parents say and things that they do. So if your parents were saying a lot, we can't afford that, right? Again, I'm not faulting them for that. Maybe there wasn't a lot of money in the bank, but still, that's teaching something when a child or a teenager or a young adult hears we can't afford that a lot. That's one way of viewing things. Again, I'm not beating it up. I'm not saying it's wrong, because again, none of what I'm saying is that any of these old ideas at any different point were wrong or bad or need to be ignored. What I'm saying is that they might not apply to where things are now, where the world is now, where the economy is now, and where you are now, and they may not directly any longer apply to the values you have and want to have, and what you want to value in your life financially, what you want to go after, what you want to not go after, what's important to you, what's not important to you, right? So for some people, having the time is much more important than money and things. For some people, actually having the money and things is more important than their time, and they live accordingly. For some people, spending money on experiences and vacations and things is more important. For some people, spending it on things and items like cars, that's more important, right? I'm not weighing in on that you should switch that or change that, or that that's bad and you should value this kind of asset and not that kind of asset. And I'm talking about, what could you get to a place where whatever you're valuing is coming from you, truly coming from you, and not coming from, maybe inadvertently, coming from your past. And this is especially true with financial decisions, because financial decisions, there's a lot of current things that might be going into a financial decision, current situations with the economy, current situations with your financial state or status or situation, right? All different things. Plus your family, if you are married to someone, or maybe you have kids, maybe you don't, or maybe you're not married but you're in a significant relationship, your significant other may have things that are important to them about money and things that are not important to them about money, and you're going to probably be dealing with that, negotiating with that, and if you're living a life together, sort of working that out together. Again, it's much harder to do that if you're stuck in something that you got from childhood, teenagerhood, and early 20s that you don't know you're stuck in and can't let go of, right? So that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the ability to be able to release those things, overcome those things, so that you can live in the here and now, so that you can be who you are here and now, and so that you can make financial decisions, all kinds of financial decisions, not just what to invest in, but what to spend your money on, when to save and when to spend, what kind of things to have, what sort of house are you going to live in, right? All these different things. Right? So many different, even just, do you go out to dinner on Saturday night or not? And if you do, what kind of place do you go out to? Right? These are all decisions. We're making small decisions, money decisions, and large money decisions all the time. That's why it's so important how we're making those decisions. Right? How we're making those decisions. And again, it's not for me to tell you what to value, right? But it's also not for your parents to tell you. It's also not for the people on the news to tell you. Right? It's also not for the guy on YouTube to tell you, right? It's also not for like the general consensus of society to tell you. It's for you to tell you, right? But you can't tell yourself that when you're living kind of in someone else's worldview, and especially if you don't know it, right? And not everybody knows it. Right? I don't fault anybody for not knowing it. It's not always something we're really trained to be aware of. So that is why the first step is always going to be to identify what's actually like what you have gleaned from your parents and from your time growing up. What you have gleaned, meaning what ideas about money and about finances and about what's important about money and finances and about how to make money and all of that, what you glean. Now, again, not because you need to disprove all of it, but because you have to at least know what the architecture is inside your own head about money. And part of knowing that, part of understanding that, is you got to sit down a little bit and do a kind of an inventory, a self-assessment, where you're really looking at, okay, how do I think money works? How do I think money works? How do I think making money works? How do I think investing works? What do I think is important about money or not important about money? What do I think is important things to do with your money and not do with your money? Right? All of these kinds of things, right? Write those down, but then, this is really important, then see if you can pinpoint where you got that from. Now, you don't have to be perfect with it. You can do the best you can. Like, oh, I got this from my mother or my father or both my parents or my uncle, or I got this from all the friends that I grew up around, or I got this from my teachers or my specific teacher, or, right? There's no wrong answer there, right? Just see if you can. Now, listen, for some of you, something awesome may happen. You may have a few ideas, worldviews, and beliefs about money that when you write them down and then you think, where did I get this from? There's going to be a few of you, not most of you, but there's going to be a few of you that are going to be like, oh, you know what? When I look into my past about where I got this, like my parents, teachers, the economy, whatever, I didn't get this from any of them. This is a belief that I took on, I'm just making this up, 4 years ago, because I realized I wanted to focus on what was important to me, or I realized I had this experience starting my own business, and so I wanted to, that really changed my thought about this, and so now I want to come at it from this, realize time is more important than money for me, or whatever your point of view is, right? So that's great. In that case, that's good to have as part of your inventory. If you know some of your beliefs, maybe even if you're very fortunate, all of them don't come from other distant people and things from your past, then great. Then maybe there's nothing to change for you, unless you want to, unless something's not working for you. Right? That's incredible. But I think for what most of us would experience in that situation is we're going to experience, as we do this inventory, I can see this came from my dad. I can see this came from my mom. I can see this came from my friends. I can see this came from the house that we grew up in. Right? And that's, again, it's totally okay. You're doing an inventory. An inventory isn't about judging it. Inventory isn't about, that's a stupid belief, that's a good belief. It's not about that. It's just about knowing this is what I think about money and what's important and how to get it and how not to waste it. Wasting money is a belief, by the way. Wasting money is not a fact. Wasting money is a perspective about this is a poor way to spend money, which is somebody's belief. Might be yours, right? But anyway, as you're doing this, you're going to start to see the architecture of what's going on inside you. Oh, these are all my perspectives about how money works come from these three sources, let's say. Like the vast majority of my ideas about money and what's important about money and how to get it and all that come from these three sources. That's great. That's so important to know. That's the first step. It's not the only step. That's not going to solve any problem by itself, but it's really helpful to know that. So then you can start doing, now that's the first step. Then you're going to start evaluating, like, where has this taken you? Do you like where it's taken you? Now, when I say where it's taking you, here's what I mean by where it's taking you. Where it's taken you financially, like whatever financial situation you're in, and do you like that financial situation you're in? So that's one piece. Another is, that I would argue very, very, very important, how happy are you? Like, not just what's your financial situation, that's one, but the other is like, how happy with you are you? Are you like happy with your life? Are you happy with your finances? Just dealing with finances, for instance, this might happen with a lot of you. Does dealing with finances feel really stressful for you? Well, there's many reasons why that could be, if that's true, why it might feel stressful for you. But one powerful reason might be because when you start to deal with finances, you engage a bunch of these old perspectives and beliefs that may not be working well for you, that may be causing a lot. Listen, I'm going to say this is my opinion, but if using a particular outlook on money is leading you to feel stressed whenever you think about money, I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably not working well for you, right? Because that's not an inherent truth that it must be stressful to think about money and finances. It could be stressful, but it's not true that it must be stressful, right? So if you're noticing that it's stressful repeatedly, again, if it's stressful once in a blue moon, I think that's far less important. But if you're noticing, hey, every time I think about money or financial plan, or anytime I try to pay bills or anything, I'm feeling stressed, that means I'm operating like my financial operating system and my financial perspective and outlook is not working for me. It's causing me stress. Also, if I notice I find myself falling into the same financial pitfalls over and over, like I keep making similar kinds of financial mistakes, that's also probably a good sign I'm using an old operating system that is totally not working for me. Right? A financial operating system, the way I'm thinking, because I got these ideas from my past, which is not applying well to my life right now. Right? Again, it's okay. Right? It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Right? It doesn't mean, it's not about you're doing something wrong, stupid, bad. Right? So it's not about that. It's about you're doing something that isn't working well for you. It's not giving you what you want. It's not giving you the life you want. It's not giving you the experience you want. It's not giving you the financial situation that you want. Right? And lots of people have that experience. Right? So that's okay. You just want to be aware of, okay, is this what's happening for me? Right? So that's a big piece of it. So we want to start to become aware of these all. And again, remember, you've probably picked up ideas about money in all sorts of subtle ways. It's not only because you read it could be because you read a book. It could be because someone sat you down and taught you. But oftentimes what's happening is it's much more subtle than that. It's people just making comments. Oh, it's really hard to, it's always going to be really hard to get by, or it's always, like it's, what's another one that I hear parents say a lot? Well, there's the I can't afford this thing. There's the, you should always save your money. Right? Am I saying it's bad to save money? I'm not saying anything's bad or a bad belief to have, but you just at least, you want it to come from you. If you really value saving money, there are some people that derive a lot of, believe it or not, derive a lot of pleasure from the act of saving money. Well, then great. Do it. Just make sure you're doing it for the right reason, right? If it's part of your values and you're deriving pleasure from it, make it happen. But if it's because, my parents always told me it's really stupid to spend money, you gotta save your money. If that's where it's coming from, you might want to reevaluate it, right? And again, they may not have told you. They might not have said to you it's bad to spend money, you should always save. You might have just overheard conversations between your parents about it, right? And that's a really powerful way to get a belief, because you don't know it's being taught to you. They don't know it's being taught to you usually, but you absorb it. So usually when that happens, we absorb things very uncritically. We're not very discerning about it, because when you're being taught something, sometimes you have your guard up, like, do I want to take this in or not? Right? That's good. That's a good thing. But when you're absorbing it, not through being directly taught, but through hearing it, and they're not trying to teach you and you're not trying to learn, then oftentimes you're not aware that you're absorbing something and taking it on, and then sometimes living by it, right? So there's a lot of this. There's, and again, this is not unique. It doesn't matter the economic class of the family you grew up in. It does matter. It affects your beliefs. But it doesn't matter in terms of, no matter whether you grew up in a very high economic strata or not, you were definitely taught a ton of beliefs about money. That's the key thing to realize. So it's going to serve you, I would argue, it's going to serve you to reevaluate all of that and make sure you're approaching money and you're living financially in a way that resonates with who you are and who you want to be and how you want to live. Right? That's really, really important. Who you are, who you want to be, how you want to live. You want to stay checked into what. Now, that's the, so that's the idea, outlook, belief part of it. It's not only about that though, right? We've talked before in terms of this month in my previous Facebook Lives about how important emotions are around money, right? And remember, you're going to make usually you're going to make the most counterproductive financial decisions that you will later regret if you are making a financial decision to fix a feeling. Right? Let me say that again, because that's actually pretty important. You are most likely, it's not a guarantee, nothing's guaranteed, right, in this life, but it's most likely that you will make a counterproductive financial decision or a financial decision that you later regret and wish you had not made if you are making the decision to fix a feeling, meaning to get rid of an unpleasant emotion. You with me? So we talked about this before, so I'm not going to do a deep dive on it, but if you want to know more, you can listen to one of my past Facebook Lives that aired this month. But the thing you want to be aware of is that people are oftentimes, I'll just do a quick recap. If you're feeling uncomfortable about something and you're trying to then make a financial decision to cure that discomfort, you're probably not going to be psyched you made that decision later. And again, this is true for big or small decisions. A big decision might be you sell something that you're invested in because it's just gone down a lot and you're freaked out and you're scared and you're uncomfortable and you're worried about the future and you want that feeling to go away. So you sell everything, but you just sold it at its low point, which is the opposite of the entire point of investing in something, which is to sell it when it's going, when it's higher than where you started, right? So this is, so that would be just one example. A small example just might be you go and you spend money on an item of clothing or a pair of shoes or something like that, or an accessory for your car because you're feeling uncomfortable and you think by spending money on this thing, you'll get a burst of pleasure that will get you away from whatever you're upset, uncomfortable, scared, sad, angry about, right? Again, it's okay to do this. Nobody's judging here, right? It's okay to do this. We're all humans. We all do this kind of stuff. What I will say is it's not going to bring you the peace that you're probably seeking. It will just make you have less money, but it won't fix this thing because feelings are not designed to be fixed. They're designed to be, right? They're not designed to be fixed. They're designed to be felt, right? So the whole idea is instead of trying to fix something uncomfortable by doing something with your money, the idea is first actually fully feel the feeling, which I described how to do in one of the past. I think I actually talked about it again last week. So if you want to know more about that, you can go take a look, because I post I post my Facebook Lives. So you can definitely look at that and rewatch that or watch it for the first time. So, but that's the key piece. So if you can sit with your emotions without trying to fix them by doing something, that's going to also really help your financial situation. Now, coming back to emotions, why I brought this up is you probably also grew up in a family that had different emotions that were demonstrated around money. I don't know what it was. You had your own experience. Maybe there was a lot of fear around money. Maybe there was a lot of envy. Maybe there was a lot of happiness and excitement about money, right? I don't know. You grew up in your own, right? Maybe there was resentment about money. Maybe there was just a blasé, I'm not happy or that unhappy. I'm not particularly upset or thrilled about money. It's like, it's just money, right? So whatever that is, that's another aspect of your past that taught you something about money and finances that you may not realize. What that probably taught you is less about what money is, because that's more on the belief end of things and the outlook, perspective end of things. This probably taught you more about, because it was demonstrated to you, how to feel around money, right? How to feel about getting money, how to feel about losing money, how to feel about thinking about money, how to feel about receiving a gift, how to feel about giving a gift, how to feel about spending, how to feel about making money, all of this, right? That's okay. It's okay that was, there's no cure for that in the sense that we all grow up with that. We all have that demonstrated to us. The thing you want to think about is, you want to get clear on, is the way I'm feeling now something that is like organically coming from me, or is it just because this is always the type of emotion that was demonstrated to me by my family or my friends or whatever when I was growing up and when I was a young adult? Right? So you just want to check in on this kind of stuff. Now, one more piece to this, which is, and we talked a little bit about this last week, being able to work and use and ultimately build your own interoception muscle, right? Now, that's not a real thing in terms of there's not a literal muscle in your body that's called an interoception muscle. I'm using that term metaphorically. Interoception's a real thing, though. Interoception, if you recall, if you've listened to me before, and if you look it up in the dictionary too, so it's the brain's ability to detect and decipher signals from the body, or the mind's ability to detect and decipher signals from the nervous system. So this includes simple things like having to go to the bathroom, being hungry, being thirsty, being tired, all of that, being cold, being hot, right? That's in the physical realm, but also includes the emotional realm, feeling happy, feeling angry, feeling scared, feeling excited, feeling contented, right? All of that. Now, we feel those things regardless, like whether we have good interoception or not, we feel these emotions. But what often happens is we get very good at cutting off and deadening our own interoception and our own interoceptive system. And so we then aren't closely in touch with our emotions, and we aren't closely in touch with our nervous system. And this creates lots of problems over time. It means our nervous system has to constantly ramp up the volume because it's not being listened to and it's trying to take care of us. It means that we often have big reactions to things because things were building in us, but we weren't properly receiving and acknowledging that until it was at explosion level. So there's lots of issues there. It means things like we spend a lot of focus and energy trying to avoid that, our nervous system and our emotions and different things, like trying to avoid that. And so then it is lots of issues there. Now, why I'm telling you this is because the third and final aspect of sort of solving this issue and having true financial freedom is creating a good relationship with your nervous system. You've got to really befriend your nervous system, and you've got to really build the muscle of using your own interoception. And yes, actually, it does include interoception about things like really tuning into whether you're tired or not, really tuning into that you have to go to the bathroom so that you don't hold it until you really, really have to go, right? Sleeping when you're tired instead of sleeping when you're exhausted, right? Eating when you're hungry instead of eating when you're famished, right? Drinking when you're thirsty, a little bit thirsty, instead of drinking when you're parched, right? We do this a lot in our life, right? We drink when we're parched, we eat when we're famished, right? That's a sign that we are ignoring our nervous system. You with me? It's a sign that we're doing that. So, the final piece here then is to build up your interoception, work this muscle. And how do you do this? First piece of it and how do you do this around finances? Is after you've done these first two steps that I was just describing to you, the third and final step is to start practicing closing your eyes and tuning into yourself and see if you can detect, and this, I'm not claiming this is going to be easy if you're not used to it. You're going to have to practice it a bit, but see if you can detect what your inner self and what your nervous system is actually like wanting and what you're feeling. I'm talking about financial stuff. Right? This will help you have an idea of what's really important to you. What do you really value? What do you really want financially? Right? What's important to you financially? What do you really want financially? What's critical for you financially? What's joyful and exciting for you financially? Right? Part of the problem is we get so cut off from that we go around trying to follow rules, trying to figure it out by what someone taught us, and so what ends up happening is we get disconnected from what we want and what's important to us, and then we end up later feeling like, why am I here? Why am I in this situation that I'm having. And by the way, I've seen people who are making quite a lot of money feel this way, and I've seen people that don't feel like they have a lot of money who also feel this way. So it's not unique to a particular economic class, right? Think about that. By the way, this is just I'll come back to that later, actually. Sorry, I'll bring back, I forgot one very tiny point I wanted to mention about an early point about parents' beliefs and stuff. But first, I want to close this out, which is you want to practice regularly tuning in whenever you're going to make any financial decision, even a small one. This is the practicing part, I mean. Do I want to go out to this nice dinner? It's fine to go out to a nice dinner, but check in with yourself. Like, close your eyes, breathe for a little bit, lengthen your breathing, meaning longer breaths in and longer breaths out, and check in with yourself. What do I want here? What do I want? What's important to me? Sometimes you're going to be surprised. Oh, I thought I really wanted to go out to dinner. I don't. Or, oh, I thought I didn't really want to go out to dinner. I really do. Or, I don't really care. Or what, you're gonna find things. You're gonna notice things about what your inner self is telling you, what your whole system is telling you, what feels like, and you're gonna feel something. Like if you think, okay, I'm gonna go out to dinner tonight, and you feel like a tenseness here, that's really important. Notice if you feel a tenseness in your chest or your stomach or your throat or your shoulders or your jaw, right? Notice this kind of thing, because this is going to tell you, oh, there's something off here, right? One of the things I tell people a lot is that any unhappy emotion, anger, sadness, fear, guilt, right, is your nervous system is telling you. It's your nervous system's communicating with you. That's the form of communication that it's taking in that moment. And what it's doing is it's communicating. If the feeling is an unhappy feeling, if the emotion is an unhappy emotion, it's communicating something is out of whack, and there's something that you need to do or have or focus on in order to get back into equilibrium and balance and homeostasis. Doesn't mean you, by the way, I'm not talking about, it's not making a moral judgment. It's not saying you're doing something wrong, you should need to do the right thing. It's saying something's out of whack in you. Maybe it is because you're doing something that isn't what you really want to do. That's one reason it could happen. And so then you're going to notice that as you get more connected here, you'll notice that that's what's happening when you're feeling some unhappy emotion. Actually, there's some tension there's something's out of whack for you. It could even be physically sometimes it could even be like you desperately need sleep and you're refusing to give yourself sleep, right? So it could be that, right? But my point is you really want to connect with this, because this is going to be the part that tells you what's really going on for you, what you really want, and what's really important to you. And doing this around money and finances is absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial. Now, last thing I'm going to say, those are the three main points, but I wanted to go back to my first point just to highlight one thing. When you're this is just my sort of little pro tip for you, a little extra tip here, but it relates to the first point about keeping and holding on to parents and other beliefs from when you were younger around money. And it is this. It's almost never going to be helpful to you to foster beliefs and have outlooks on life and on money that involve making money your enemy. Now, you don't have to have money. I'm not saying you should always be pursuing more money and always you should have more and more and more. That's up to you. That's your call. I'm talking about however much money you want, you don't really want to make money your enemy. Right? It's sort of a no-win. If you want more money and you make your money your enemy, it's very hard to get more money when you're making money your enemy. If you have a lot of money and you make money your enemy, that also is counterproductive, because it takes something that could be a source of joy and makes it a source of misery, right? And believe me, I've worked with a lot of people who have a lot of money and are miserable, right? Money, it doesn't make them happy. Right? So you can not have a lot of money and be miserable. You can have a lot of money and be miserable. You can not have a lot of money and really be have a good, healthy emotional life, and you can have a lot of money and have a really good and healthy emotional life. So it's all four of those things are possible, right? But you want to be careful about outlooks that make money the enemy. These are getting, actually, weirdly enough, they're getting increasingly popular, at least in the US, but they're going along. There's always more than one strain of what's happening in the culture in the US and probably in every country. So there's one strain that's been around for as long as I've been alive in the US that's very much, and it's still here with us, which is basically just like money, money, money. More money is what matters. Money is what makes you worth something as a person. If you don't have it, you're not worth anything. It's always important to have more. It's never enough. Money is the arbiter of society and tells who's valuable and who isn't. If you have money, that means you deserve it. If you don't have money, it means you don't deserve it. Right? So that's one strain in American society. And that's been around that's not new. That's been around a long, 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 long time. Right? I've never been alive and not felt that. Felt that from society and from the culture. Even when I was a little kid, I can remember that feeling. But the newer strain that's also happening, but which is also, I would argue, also counterproductive, is a strain of, and I think it's probably a backlash to so many decades, and maybe more than decades, of this first strain that I was describing to you, is the idea of sort of money is kind of bad, people who have money are bad, wanting money is bad, people who have money are jerks. Like, go on Facebook. I mean, not on Facebook. You're on Facebook. Go on YouTube and watch how many videos of entitled people that you see. People with money who are being very entitled and rude about it. Right now, look. Yeah, I don't support behaving that way, the way an entitled person would behave. I'm not condoning that behavior, but it's also a little strange that this has now become such popular watching on YouTube, and I think it's partly because a lot of people really like to see the comeuppance. They like to see these entitled people get their comeuppance. But what it's part of what it's morphed into is like, look at the people who have are jerks, right? And look, I'm not saying we couldn't stand to do make serious changes in the financial system and decisions and priorities that we have as a country. I'm not talking about that. I'm not making a political argument. I'm just talking about, for you, it's just almost never going to serve you to start creating a worldview where money and people with money and things like that are your enemy and things that you hate and are things that are signs of a low moral person and all of that, right? Because you could have money and not be entitled, right? That's definitely possible. In fact, we talked about this in previous weeks, but one of the things that's often overlooked about money and not practiced by people at all levels of the economic sphere is being able to be really, really grateful for the money you have. This is really helpful if you have no more than $5,000 to your name, because then it's really important to be grateful for the money that you have and for the things that you have. But it's also true if you have $10 million or $100 million, right? Because in that case, it also can be very important and very effective and very conducive to health to be really grateful. And you're actually not going to be, this is the thing, you have to understand, right? People are afraid of being entitled. You can't be entitled if you're grateful, right? You can't, let me say that again. You can't be entitled if you're grateful. If you're truly grateful and thankful and appreciative of what you have, you're not entitled. Like, it's like magic. You literally are not entitled. You are not entitled. You will not feel entitled. You will not behave in an entitled way, right? Because you are actually really cherishing and grateful for what you have rather than feeling like it's owed to you, right? In fact, entitlement, what that does is it destroys your ability to appreciate and feel good about and feel grateful for what you have. This is why what people don't understand is the entitled people hurt themselves more than they hurt the people that they're rude to. It's not cool that they're rude to people, but they're hurting themselves the most because they're actually cutting off any chance to feel good about what they have, right? So I'm coming back to this larger point, which is it's not going to serve you to make, and maybe I might do a Facebook Live just about this subject in a couple of months, because it's worth talking more about. There are lots of ways where we make, in our minds, where we make money, and having money and spending money and acquiring money, we make that our enemy. Mentally and emotionally, we make it our enemy. Right? Doesn't mean we don't do things to try and get money, but oftentimes we make it our enemy. And when you do that, it's going to make it impossible for you to enjoy it, money that you do have. It's going to cut you off from acquiring it in a bunch of ways, because it's always going to, in different ways, cut you off from acquiring money when the thing you're trying to acquire is something you have resentment toward, or hate toward, or annoyance toward, or anger toward, or a sense of moral turpitude toward, or anything like that. That's never going to help you get the thing that you want, because you don't really want it. You think it's gross or think it's bad. So yeah, okay, so fine. The other thing is that if you do have a lot of money right now, then if you're having different ways where you're thinking in a enemy kind of way, in a poor way, in a like resentful way about money, it's going to destroy any chance you have of actually enjoying what you have. And if you have money and you are still trying to make more money, it's also going to get in the way of that. And here's the other thing for all of you, again, any class you're in, any economic class you're in, you're going to make how we're thinking about these things, how we're thinking about finances affects our financial decisions. That shouldn't come as a shock to you. So it's going to affect in a bunch of subtle ways the types of decisions you make around money. If you feel like money is the enemy, or enemy is like money is bad in some way, or people that have money are bad in some way, it's going to affect your decisions that you make, and it's going to make you more likely to make decisions that move you away from the thing you hate and think is bad, and that's money. Right? So you just think about that. It's not one of the three main points to discuss today, but it's just a sort of fourth bonus point to consider about this. The most important piece, though, is coming back to your own sense of true financial freedom, true financial decision making that comes from inside of you and isn't trapped in old boxes. Okay, so I hope that's helpful for you. I want to also just tell you, I see some of you coming in just recently. If you missed that, remember I'm recording this, so I'm going to post this to my Facebook page in like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. The one thing I just want to remind you of is I put a link up there, up in here, right here in the post, and it is a link to these two courses that we are offering in the fall. You can take either one because they're the same course. We're just offering it twice. And it's called Mastering Your Own Neuro Crashes. We can't be strong when we use our brains wrong. And that is going to be a really, really helpful. If any of this discussion is helpful to you, you should really want to consider registering for that, because it teaches you some tools that are applicable to finances and a million other things. It's not a financial course. That's not what it is, as you can tell by the title. But it's comprised of 6 2-hour classes that happen once a week for 6 weeks. And each class focuses on one of the causes of dysregulation, emotional distress, overwhelm, discomfort. Focuses on one of those causes for each 2-hour class, and then the solution to that, what to do instead. And the course comes with terrific detailed handouts that you obviously get to keep, that go through all the main points of each class. So you get handouts for the course. You get to keep those. If you miss one of the classes, let's say, because they're live classes that happen via Zoom, if you miss one, we'll send you a link, and you will have a week to watch a recording of what you missed. Then it gets auto-deleted, because we want people to have their privacy with what they're sharing in the course, and not it just sitting on the internet for years. But you have a full week, if you miss it, to watch the recording of what you missed. I don't recommend doing that a lot, because part of what really works about it isn't just what me and Kate are saying, but the activities we're having you do in the class and the back and forth there and the ability to ask questions and all of that. So I would recommend you come to almost all of them live if you can, or most of them live if you can. We're offering one that starts in September and goes to early October, and one that starts in October and goes to early November. They are at different times. That's why we're offering it twice, so it can fit different people's schedules and time zones. So you'll see if you follow that link, it'll show you both all the dates of the classes and all the times of the classes, and you can pick which whether you want to do the September one or the October one. You can pick which one. They're the same. They're literally the same. So don't sign up for both. So I hope that's helpful for you. I really hope. We would really like to. I've been working with a lot of you and having Facebook time with a lot of you. I really think could be helpful for so many of you. So I hope you at least click on the link. It says more about it. So if you click on the link, it's not going to automatically register you. You can read more about it, and then there will be a registration button that you can click on if you want to do that. Okay? Let's see what else we got. Zara, hey Zara, thanks for coming. You're saying, hello Ron, it's interesting. Oh, I'm glad you're finding it interesting. I'm really glad about that. Beata, hi from Poland. I used to have a little money when I was a student, and at the same time I worked. And nowadays I am a teacher and I have some money, with a smiley face, and despite sometimes I want to have more, I'm quite happy about my financial situation. Beata, that's beautiful. I'm so happy to hear that. That's wonderful. Good for you. Good for you. I'm cheering you on. That is really, really magnificent. There's not a lot of people that can say that. A lot of people don't feel that way. So that is beautiful. Being able to appreciate what you have is like one of the cornerstones of living a fulfilled life. It's really, really important. So wow, if you can do that, yeah, it doesn't mean, as you're saying, it doesn't mean you don't want more money sometimes. It doesn't mean you can't get more money. But it means you're happy about your situation now. That is magnificent. That's magnificent. That's incredible. Good for you. Good for you. Okay, so guys, I'm gonna leave you there. I'm gonna leave you there, my little people. My little people. I hope this was helpful to you. Like I said, this was the last one of Money Month, the last Facebook Live of Money Month. We're gonna have Facebook Lives in August, of course, but not about this subject. We're gonna have a couple on autism. We're going to have one on relationships, I believe. And then we'll have even more new ones in September. Also, just keep your eyes out. Remember, pretty soon, Kate and I are going to be starting our our YouTube channel, which is called the YouTube channel is called You've Got Some Nervous System. So yeah, that's starting soon. It's not set up yet, so don't look it up right this second, but just keep it in the back of your head. I'll keep making announcements about it, don't worry. Plus, every time we drop something on YouTube, I'll shoot you a link. I'll put a link on my Facebook page, so you'll be very much apprised of the situation. But just, yeah, keep in mind, we're very excited about that. Eventually, what's going to happen is I'm going to reduce my Facebook Lives to once a month. But we will do more YouTubes and hopefully also YouTube Lives. So if you want a live experience and you want more than once a month, I'm going to be doing that once a week on YouTube. But listen, this is not yet. For right now, we're going to stick with what we're doing right now, and I'll let you know when that bigger change happens. Okay, everybody? All right. Hey, take care of yourself. I'm rooting for you guys. I want the best for you guys. I'm excited to see you guys. I think next week we don't have a Facebook Live actually, but 2 weeks from now we'll have one. All right, so I'll see you then. Take care, everybody.